Hello and welcome to Bingewatch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwen, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 21st of November 2025, including Matt Smith as a chaotic dad on a road trip in Nick Cave's The Death of Bunny Munro on Now TV, and the beautifully shot backwards period drama Train Dreams on Netflix.
And we'll also be rejoining Aimee Lee Wood and David Morrissey for a new run of domestic comedy Daddy Issues on BBC iPlayer, and having a man on the inside in the form of Ted Danson as his Netflix comedy also returns. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Luke Evans will star in the ITVX drama The Party, about a journalist and a politician who have been lifelong friends through thick and thin. Sounds a bit like State of Play, doesn't it?
It really does.
What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, the lineup for the Celebrity Apprentice Christmas specials will include Rob Rinder, and Sarah Hadland.
We've got two returning comedies this week, and if I had to choose a theme, it would be Deadbeat Dads, Hannah. Yes. So, we're going to start on Netflix with a new feature film called Train Dreams. And here's a clip.
I was thinking that we ought to get married.
This is rough work, gentlemen. Not just on the body. We just cut down trees that have been here for 500 years. Upsets a man's soul whether he recognizes it or not.
So this is set in North America in the early 20th century. It's about this chap called Robert Grainier, played by Joel Edgerton of Star Wars fame. He's an orphan. He lives a very lonely life. But then he meets Gladys, played by Felicity Jones, from The Theory of Everything, and gets married and becomes a dad. His work, it's set in Idaho, by the way. His work is as a logger, so that means he has to go far from home. He's often working for the railroad because the railways are racing across North America. And so it's quite a lonely, hard life away from his sort of idyllic family life in this cabin he's built by a river. William H. Macy from Fargo, he appears in it as a dynamite specialist. It's very slow. It's very quiet. I mean, Robert himself is extremely taciturn. He really doesn't say much. And he suffers a bit like a sort of Thomas Hardy protagonist. He really suffers, and I won't say what happens. It's based on a book. There's tragedy that he has to endure. There's also some interesting reflections on the fact that they're basically deforesting these vast tracts of land, and like what impact will that have on the landscape and on themselves. And also 20th century technology is also racing ahead, although Robert remains largely untouched by it. You've also got Kerry Condon, who was brilliant in The Banshees of Inisherin as the sister of Colin Farrell's character. So she plays Claire, who is a forestry worker who sort of forms a bond with Robert later in his life. Yeah, this was very unexpected. It looks great. I mean, so much of it is shot outdoors. It looks incredible. And I just like the fact that it's very slow, it's very quiet, quite kind of elegiac. So, yes, recommended. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, I love a period drama, so that's really nice. But I think we've become used to period dramas that aren't quite, as you put it, slow. I mean, they're quite pacey and racy, actually, some of the recent ones that we've looked at on Bingewatch. And this does just sort of, it's lots to get your head around, but essentially quite a simple story too. And I think it's the reflection of losses, because there's a loss, isn't there, really? And also kind of through a man's eyes as well, which you don't always see in period dramas. I think often you see it through a female lens. And so I found that quite interesting as well. Really nicely done. I think something that's that a lot of people will enjoy, but something's a little bit different and a different take on period dramas we've kind of been used to, because although they're period, they're almost made more modern in the sort of brutality and some of it that we see that I suppose plays to modern times. I don't know, but this doesn't feel like that. So yes, it's good.
We move across to BBC iPlayer for the return of comedy Daddy Issues, and here's a clip.
There's this fire inside me now. I want to provide a better life for my baby.
This is gonna be the best day. Gemma!
No!
Dear terror.
And I like it before the police turn up. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I can't do this without you, Dad.
Yes, so if you haven't seen the first season of this, you'll catch up with season 2 pretty easily. I don't think you need to see it. You'll catch up, but it's quite good to have that. And I went back and watched some of those previous episodes just to kind of remind myself what had happened. But essentially, that first series sees a single mum-to-be, Gemma, who's played by Aimee Lou Wood, and her dad Malcolm, in this kind of like weird father-daughter relationship where they're kind of both bumbling through life. She's a single mum to be, whereas this series, it's 3 months. You see her have the baby, she's having the baby Sadie, and then it moves to 3 months on, and you see a really quite different Gemma. And I actually really enjoyed this because Gemma, as I say, played by Aimee Lou Wood, is really quite a bright character. You know, she's really articulate. I mean, of course, it's scripted, I realise that. But you kind of often have these ideas of somebody, she's got herself into trouble, you know, she hasn't really got any kind of way of looking after this baby, particularly other than love. This has changed her view on everything. But she's just so sort of... she's bright. She's a bright girl, and she's very, very funny in this. It's a very dry humour. You know, it's sort of, there are kind of laugh out loud moments, but it's a bit of I sort of hear myself chuckling kind of all the way through when I was watching this. So as I say, this new run begins with baby Sadie has arrived, and Gemma is dealing with these, you know, sleepless nights, which any new mum will totally understand. And someone says to her, you know, aren't you supposed to sleep when the baby sleeps? And that's what people used to say to me, but of course you don't, because that's the only time you've got to actually catch up on doing anything so that house doesn't look like it's, you know, been burgled daily. So, you know, that's what you're doing. And she's absolutely exhausted, and the makeup and everything, I mean, she just looks really quite run down at times, but it feels so real and genuine. And I think that is the point. But she has a really close relationship with her dad. Her mum comes back on the scene this time, her mum Davina, who's played by Jill Halfpenny, who's replaced Susan Lynch. Now she's out and about, out in the nights, you know, having fun, living her best life, you know, having a good drink and all the rest of it. And she's coming home, and really her dad's living back in a shared house, but on this sort of the just basically at the top of the stairs. Really, it's not a way to live. So he's exhausted too, and she needs to try and find a way of getting her mum out the house. The mum is really no use. She was okay in the first few weeks, but literally 3 months in, and she's given up and she's bored of it all, and she wants to get her dad to move back in. So that's what this is all about doing. And the relationship that Malcolm has with Sadie, he absolutely adores her. It's quite different to the relationship that, you know, the grandmother has, because she's, you know, she just wants to live her own life. You know, she's not got, she doesn't have to do this anymore. She doesn't want to do it, and she's having a good time with a sausage man. Put it that way. So this is one of those. I really enjoyed it. But it's a one that you sort of chuckle throughout rather than massive belly laughs. What did you think, Ian?
Well, what a great launching pad Sex Education was for a number of young stars, wasn't it? And one of those was Aimee Lou Wood, and she's just gone from strength to strength. White Lotus, Film Club, which was terrific comedy we've reviewed. And this is great as well. And of course, the idea of like the child being more grown up than the parent is fertile comedic ground, isn't it? As we know from Ab Fab. And that's what's happening here. And go back and watch season 1 because it's so good. And I mean, it's bittersweet in a way that it's a comedy, but there is a slight sadness about it in a way. I mean, David Morrissey is wonderful as Malcolm, who, as you say, he's sleeping on a mattress on a landing in this shared house, which is owned by his friend Derek, played by David Finn, and he is very, very funny as well. And the mum just kind of going out shagging, being completely useless. So it's great. Yeah, it's kind of quite gentle laughs, I would say, but it's very, very good. And I mean, Aimee Lee Wood can do no wrong. Over on Now TV and Sky Atlantic, we have a new drama series called The Death of Bunny Munro. And here's a clip.
Dad, can you teach me how to be a salesman like you?
You've got to set yourself apart. You've got to have something they think they need.
What's that?
Hope. The dream. You've got to sell them the dream.
What's the dream?
Me.
Well, this is based by a novel by the multi-talented musician Nick Cave. And it stars Matt Smith. I mean, I was pretty much unaware of Matt Smith when he became Doctor Who. And a very good doctor he was. I shouldn't say became Doctor Who. He played the Doctor in Doctor Who. He was great in that, and he's been superb in everything he's done since. And he's excellent in this. So he plays Bunny. Yes, another deadbeat dad. He lives in Brighton. He's got a son and a partner, well, a wife, played by Sarah Green, his wife Libby. And he's just a Lothario. He cheats on his wife. He's just a really flaky character. We've all met people who are very darkly charismatic, but also totally unreliable, and he's one of them. Jumping off point, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but anyway, his wife kills herself, okay, and so he's left to look after Bunny Jr., the son, but they live in this flat which is an absolute mess, and what he wants to do really is offload the kid on the grandparents. And anyway, social services come round, and there's all this drug paraphernalia. There's a naked woman there, like that. This the morning after the wake, and which was a really sort of raucous affair. And so they leg it, and we're off on this road trip. And you've got Lindsay Duncan, plays his mother-in-law, who absolutely hates him. Robert Glenister plays his boss. And David Threlfall, wow, plays Bunny's father. And I think we don't see him in episode 1, but it's going to be really interesting to see, okay, what made Bunny the dreadful man he is. Matt Smith, he looks so cool in this, doesn't he? He looks really handsome and smooth. But yeah, he's just an absolutely dreadful character. And again, it is quite sad, really, a bit grim. But great performances, really good story, like the setting. Recommended. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, Matt Smith is just super cool, isn't he? I mean, just brings cool to everything he does. You know what? With this, it's the grief part of it that's really hard to watch, I think, because, as you say, his wife commits suicide. He's obviously not a particularly likeable character and is sort of behaving badly. And then, of course, there's a little boy thrown into the mix. And you know what I'm like when there's children involved. I struggle with that anyway. And you know, the wake that we see is just so preposterous and awful. And, you know, social services come and he realises that he's one step away, if not there, where social services are going to take that child away. And, of course, he goes on the run. And I can't help but feel that there was a part of him well, he doesn't want his son to go. That's the point. You know, if he did, then carry on behaving the way he does, and he doesn't want to be around looking after his kid. That's it. But there isn't that at all. You know, he's just making the wrong choices every corner, and is that fueled by grief? Is that fueled by the fact that he's not a particularly brilliantly nice person in the first place? You know, all of those things come to mind. But there's sort of this inner sadness because essentially he loves his son, but love is not enough in this case because he's not actually meeting his required needs on a day-to-day basis. So, and I think he plays the part really, really well because you find yourself lunging from one emotion to the other, which is, I want him to keep his son, but he can't keep his son because his son is in a terrible state and he needs more, you know, consistency and continuity and food on a plate and not being surrounded by drugs. So I think it's really well done, and I think Matt's the perfect person to play this because he has that sort of that cool aura, and as I say, most people playing this part, you just instantly hate them, and I didn't have that feeling, you know.
Agreed. Well, we're going to finish with our second returning comedy on Netflix. It's season 2 of A Man on the Inside, and here's a clip.
I'm a private investigator. I was hired by your wife to figure out whether you were having an affair. It seems like you are. And he's not a surgeon. He manages a Pep Boys.
Look, I don't know what she's paying you, but I will double it. Plus, free oil changes for life.
I want a real PI case, something juicy.
Oh, the lovely Hollywood star Ted Danson is back. I really love Ted. He's so funny. He's absolutely brilliant. So season 1, we saw him play the part of Charles, this lonely widower. He'd lost his wife, and he's processing his grief, and he lands this just one-off job as an undercover private investigator. But the jobs are really boring. I mean, they're just going out and finding out that a man is not being faithful to his wife. Essentially, is what he's doing. And he doesn't want that anymore. He wants to literally be the man on the inside. He wants to be a proper private investigator. So as this new series begins, he carries on working for this company. He says, look, he doesn't want to do anything like that anymore. He wants to do something proper. And this opportunity arises to try and find the perpetrator, the person that stole a laptop from a college campus. Which is, they say, I think when I was watching it's worth $4 million or something like that. And it threatens a donation from this billionaire alumni. And he is an ex-professor, so it's the perfect place for him to pitch up and, you know, not stand out. And in he goes. But the trouble is that, you know, he's a bit of a rookie sleuth. He kind of does things that he shouldn't be doing. He's not that brilliant at the gig. But he meets this eccentric music professor called Mona, and it's actually played by his wife, Mary, who they've been married together for something like 30 years, I think, together. So they, you know, there's a chemistry there. It sort of works. But he's having this relationship with her, or, you know, fraternising with her, having a bit of a dalliance. And of course, she's one of the main suspects. So it's all very tongue in cheek. It's really funny in places. It's just quite it's light entertainment, is what I'd say. Ian, what did you think?
I really like it, and I mean, Danson he's going to be 78 soon, so it's just good to see someone of that age in a leading role. He looks great, and I think he's doing some great work at this stage of his career, because of course him and Mary Steenburgen were both in Curb Your Enthusiasm as themselves, and he's good in that. And yeah, he's just got great comic timing, and he's just a brilliant performer. So there's a lovely scene at the beginning where he's in a bar, and he's watching this husband who's having an affair. So that's really funny. And then you've got Gary Cole remember Midnight Caller from all those years ago? He plays this obnoxious billionaire who hopefully is going to give some money to the college. Yeah, the scenes with Mary, who plays a sort of eccentric music professor. They're rather sweet. And yeah, it's got it's that gentle comedy, a bit like Only Murders in the Building, which again has these sort of veteran American comedians in it, or comic actors. So yeah, I like it. It's just a nice, easy watch that will make you feel good. Now, we've got to that time, young Hannah, my lad, where we find out what the hell you've been binge watching.
Well, of course, I've been watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Yes, I'm invested, Ian. I'm invested. That's all I can say. Kelly Brook is doing it for the girls like me who are not on the skinny jab. I love it. She is absolutely brilliant, and she should be thoroughly embraced because she's doing it for the girls. Love her.
Good stuff. Well, I find once I've trawled through the very long menu on Netflix and found nothing to watch, I often pop over to iPlayer and I'm pleasantly surprised. And that was the case this week. I watched a documentary about Richard Burton called Richard Burton Wild Genius. And I also watched, this is quite old, a very good dramatisation called The Life and Death of Peter Sellers. A great cast starring Geoffrey Rush and just showing what an absolutely horrible person Peter Sellers was. But yeah, it's got Charlize Theron in it. It's got Stanley Tucci. It's remember when they were doing all those dramas? I think it might have been on BBC4 about people like Hattie Jakes and Kenneth Williams, and that this is another one of them. And it is A1 if you didn't see it first time round. Now, we've just got to the time to look ahead to next week's offering. So, what is on the agenda, Brenda?
Well, man of the moment, literally, Alan Carr's autobiographical comedy Changing Ends returns on ITVX with lovely Oliver Saville, who is my friend's son, who plays the young Alan Carr.
He's very good, that young lad. Excellent. And, wow, though this is the big one of the year, I guess, the eagerly awaited final season of sci-fi Stranger Things, although it hasn't been that good a year for David Harbour, lands on Netflix. So I cannot wait for that. I would burn right through that as soon as it arrives. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, dear listeners,